What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And today we're here with somebody whose name I'm probably going to butcher, but we're friends now, so she'll forgive me. So it's Arezou Zarafshan.
Perfect.
Ask me to say that again. It's not going to happen. I'm going to call you AZ. Is that good?
That's fine. That's great.
Well, I am really excited to have her here with us today, guys, because we are really going to be talking about how to grow a startup. And she's got 2 times experience, 1 time failing, 1 time succeeding, which is way cooler to me than people who are just like the one-hit wonders. So she's got a lot of experience in this, helped multiple companies do this through her own consulting company. And we're also going to be talking today about this really amazing, simple, just beautiful app called Call Emmy. So first off, say what's up to everybody and then let's hop in.
Hey, everyone. So I'm going to just follow your lead, Josh. What's up?
What's up?
Not my lingo. That's not my lingo, but I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And, I can talk about startups till the cows come home because I love that topic and I love sharing my experience and my learnings from my failed experience going into what we're doing now, Call Emmy, which, sometimes I pinch myself because I'm like, this is almost too easy. Why is this happening so well?
You're waiting for it to cut you out the knees.
Yeah, exactly. So really glad to be here.
That's exciting. And so I do want to ask you that to really kick it off, because you've worked with a lot of female entrepreneurs, especially who, like you've mentioned, I mean, they're juggling 10,000 things and trying to build a company on the side. And I've met many of them on this show, and it just blows me away because we don't even have kids yet at the time of this recording. And I feel like there's just never enough hours in the day,
Mm-hmm.
So for you, I'm going to put it in the perspective of being, let's just say, a mother who wants to start a tech startup, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do in the first 90 days to be able to actually set yourself on a trajectory to make a 6-figure income from that company?
Well, I would say that you have to be committed to it and don't think it's going to be comfortable at all. I mean, there are days that I go on with 3 hours of sleep the night before. Today happens to be one of them, actually.
We'll wake you up.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a smooth ride. I'm not one to tell people you can't do it. No, you can do it. You just have to be able and willing to pay the cost. And in my case, it's the cost of, sleep, girlfriend, weekend getaways and trips and comfortable time. Brené Brown, I'm sure you know who she is, but she said you can choose courage or you can choose comfort. You can't choose both. So being in my life stage, being a mom of a younger child, and being a professional, ambitious woman and wanting to start something takes courage. And so be ready for that and make the commitment. That's what it takes.
I love that. And I think, especially, I built my first company while in college, and people look at those sort of situations, that and the mother situation, it's all kind of the same. Oh, but you have so much on your plate already. How did you make it happen? And like you said, it's just about prioritizing and figuring out, it's going to be hard, and you just have to accept that it's going to be hard. And it almost makes it less hard because it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of condition yourself to accept that.
Right.
And, when it gets hard in terms of, I wish I could, you remind yourself why you're doing this. You remind yourself of your why. And you remind yourself that this is not forever. This is, because really the hard part of a startup is the first 4 or 5 years.
Right.
If you can't figure out within the 4 or 5 years, then there's not a lot of chance for you to survive.
Right.
And so it's about really making through those 4 or 5 years and figuring it out through those and accepting the hardship, accepting the costs, and then you'll be fine. It's similar to going to college, right? We all went to college 4 years, 5 years, whatever. And some of the courses that we studied were drudgery, right? And we were like, well, why are we doing this? Well, it was an investment. It was 4 or 5 years of drudgery so that we can build a better future. It's the same thing.
Right.
And you always have the choice of stepping out.
Yeah.
You know, that choice is always there.
There's no dead ends. That's what I love. And I think people get so hung up on that, and they assume there's so much more risk to it, but there really isn't as much risk as most people tie to it, you know?
Yeah. I think that it all depends. Like, it all depends on what kind of life you want, what kind of stories you want to be able to tell when you're 95 years old. For me, the risk was doing nothing. That was the risk. And for a very long time, I had the comfortable life. I had it all. And it just wasn't enough. I needed to build something, and I needed it to be my product, my fingerprints on the world, not through a different company, through my company. And it became intolerable not to do it. So for me, the risk was doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because everything, to me, time is the most precious commodity. Time is the only thing that will never be able to be replaced. The minute that is here, next minute it's gone. It's gone forever. Everything else is replaceable. And so I wanted to make sure that with my time, I do something that really fulfills me, brings me joy, but also when I look back 10 years from now and I look back at how I spent my time, I feel like I gave it my all and I did my best and I made my mark.
And yeah, that's like the story of your life too. That's what I love is, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, Arezou, you came from immigrating over at 18 years old to going to college, getting your degrees, and then starting companies and becoming so successful. I mean, it's that typical underdog story that we all love to hear, and overcoming those barriers. I think, like you said, it's left you to where you can't even look back already and say, wow, I've done some amazing things. So, and I want to ask you especially this question, because you help coach, or you help people who are starting tech startups to go from idea to launch.
Correct.
A lot of the people who listen to the show, they've already launched. It's not a tech startup. They're usually in the B2B sector, but they're a lot of times at this stage when we get stuck, we start to question if the idea was worth the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious what your take is on, let's just say you're stuck at $300,000. You've been there for maybe 2 years, 3 years, and you can't break it. What's your take on either pursuing a new idea or implementing new ideas into your company?
Yeah. So I would say that if you've made it to 300,000, you can make it to 300 million. That's what I would say. The hardest part of a startup is above 100,000. Once you make it 100,000, then you have milestones. You go, 3 to 500,000, then you go 1 million, and then 10 million. All of a sudden, there are different levels. So if you've made it to $300,000, first of all, don't look for a different idea. Don't look for a shiny new object. This is your idea. It's about execution. Now, some of the things that you did to get you to $300,000 are the very things that you need to not do to get to the million, right? So in my view, scalability is a big factor where companies kind of plateau. What do I mean by scalability? Scalability is about amplifying the effort, result of the effort. Many companies that are founder-led, the founder generally puts 80 to 100 hours every week. They are the janitor, they are the customer service, they are the accountant, bookkeeper, marketer, et cetera. Maybe some of the things that they can't do, they outsource. Like technology, they don't know how to do, they outsource. But the stuff that they can figure out how to do, they do it. Well, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do it at $300,000. Yes, that will impact your profitability, but you will make that up and more as you generate more revenue. So the first thing I would say is don't abandon your idea, stick with it. Second, take a deep breath, step back, and think about what are the things that are hindering your growth? Why are you not growing? And ask why 5 times. Okay, so, okay, why are you not growing? Well, because I am not getting new customers. Why are you not getting the new customers? I don't have a sales force. Why aren't you having a sales force? Da 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 da. Solve the answer. Solve the problem that those answers will give you. And oftentimes it's about not having resources to grow your company. That's what I have learned in my professional life. Is what hinders growth oftentimes is the fear. And the founder either wants to do it all because they're fearful that no one else can do it as well as they can, or they're fearful that their margin gets hit. Either way, you got to get over that hump to be able to take to the next level. Yes, as a founder, you worked really hard, 80 hours a week, and you got your company to $300,000. That's not what you need to do to go to the next milestone.
Yeah, I love that. I heard a quote from somebody the other day that really stuck with me. They're like, 10% of 100 million is a lot more than 100% of nothing, right?
Yeah.
And I've thought about that a lot because, for some people, the solution is to get those resources, because I know even in our company, every time we slow down, it's because of that, right? It's should we really put resources into, we're 100% bootstrapped. So it's, where are you going to get the money from, right? It's either more resources from somebody, so you have to coerce somebody to work for free, or you have to find more money, right? So, I mean, yeah, I love that, the way that you identified that. So I want to ask you this question too, in regards to sales. You kind of sparked this question with your response, but when it comes to finding a good sales team, I mean, you've done this already at this point for your company. What would you recommend to somebody if that's their problem? Because I would say 80% of the people working or listening to the show, that's one of their biggest issues is finding a good sales team and building a good sales team. So where would you recommend people start for that?
Well, I would say before you build a sales team, build a sales process. Okay. So your sales process, whatever that is for B2B, it's often, start with identifying leads, then qualifying the leads, then outreach, da 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 da. Build your sales process and assign time to the process so you understand how long your sales cycle gets. You generally need a really, really good sales team for the latter part of the process, right? The first part of the process where it's all about lead generation, qualifying leads, and setting up appointments, that's real. I don't, a lot of sales professionals will disagree with me, but I think that a lot of, inexperienced people can be trained to do that. But really getting the experienced sales professionals to come in and meet with the client and cultivate the lead and then close, that's where you need a really good sales team to fulfill your process. Now, where do you get the sales team? The first thing I would say is that, have you worked for any companies that you have that has had great sales team? Go call on them. Second, have you had a vendor who sold to you? If they sold to you, they probably were a good sales team, right? If all fails, like you have never been sold to and you have never seen anyone sell, then I would say start training yourself and go on LinkedIn and start talking to sales professionals and ask questions, and you'll find it. The best sales team that I have seen are the ones that have sold to me, and I'd hire them in a heartbeat, big time.
And then a lot of people do. And I love that distinction. I mean, what's funny, and I completely agree with you about the lead generation side, being a marketer. I mean, there's 10,000 different ways to get good qualified leads. And everybody thinks it's this big magical process. It's a numbers game, generating leads.
Yeah.
There's better ways than others, but you've got to just go with bulk. And I think you can outsource it very, very simply to low skill people. But then finding that sales team, I think for most people is where they struggle with. So thank you for your answer to that question. I love that. So when it comes to people who maybe don't have an idea in place, how do you coach people from idea to launch? Because that's the first place people get hung up, is they have all these amazing ideas that they want to start. And actually, just to kind of pre-frame this question, we're in the process of trying to buy another company, and the owners are retiring, but they both want to start other companies, but they have been terrified to start other companies still, and they have a multi-million-dollar company. So it's really intriguing to watch that even successful people struggle with that. So how have you been helping people get from there to where they're actually confident in launching their company?
Mm-hmm. Well, my question to them is, if not now, then when, really? Because there is never a right time. There really isn't.
Never going to be easy.
Yeah, you're not going to be, to your point, you have these people that are making millions of dollars and they're still terrified, right? So money isn't it. When you become richer, you don't become more confident. When your kids grow, you don't become more confident. When the win is, to throw the win out, the time is now. And so with my clients, this is what I say. And I think for them, they see my conviction, and they see that I have followed that path, that I have actually, I've followed my own advice. And so that gets them 75% of the way. Interesting thing is, like, I was talking to someone a few weeks ago, and she's, I don't know, young, in her 20s, and she doesn't have kids, and she has a husband who's fully employed, and she's fully employed, and she has this really awesome idea, and she's afraid. Okay, so your husband is fully employed, you don't have kids, you're 28 years old. What could go wrong that you cannot possibly, overcome? Really, what could go wrong? This will fail. Okay, well, then you go get a job. What's so bad about that, right? And so a lot of times I actually help them see that the worst case is not all that bad. It's not all that bad. And the worst case, I think there's stats about it. The worst case scenario happens only 0.3% of the time, I think. So you are putting your life, your time on hold because you're afraid of 0.3%. So that's what I do.
Perspective. I love that. I mean, people are, and I always say people, I have the same problem as well. It's you sometimes just have to face it, look at it head on, and realize what it is, and then become okay with that. You know what? If I had to get a job, would that be the end of the world? For some people, that's the most embarrassing thing. I think that's very noble to say, you know what? This didn't work out for me. I'm going to get a job until I have money enough and idea enough to actually launch my second one, and I'll win the second time. Mm-hmm. I heard a statistic, and you could probably back this up, but everybody knows that it's like 95% of businesses fail, but they did another study on that 95% of first-time businesses fail.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
80% of second businesses actually succeed.
Yes. Yes.
I was blown away by that statistic. Because I'm on business like number 3, I think.
Good for you. Good for you.
But that's where it's at, right? Is you're like, oh, it makes sense because you've made all the mistakes. So go out there and fail your first time so you can win the second time, right?
Really, I mean, those failures, at least in my experience, like the first time I failed, my co-founders failed. Looking back, could we have avoided those failures? Absolutely. Absolutely. What got in the way? Ego, right? We had to make it work. We actually I shouldn't say we, I started doing things, foolish things that I knew were never scalable, but I needed to prove that this was going to work. So it didn't work. And so, I think the second time around, a lot of founders actually wisen up to the idea that ego isn't the best thing for business. Um, and if you stick with it, and if you, again, if you're objective enough to listen to your own voice of reason and to other voices of reason, and again, be persistent. There's only one way to go. I was a few years ago, I was doing some investing, and I was looking for early stage companies to, invest in. And I came across this company in Colorado. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say what they did, but let's say that they provide comfort in travel for a very, very, very small niche part of the market. Like, I don't know, probably 0.1%, if that. And I looked at that company and I'm like, yeah, right. This is like the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And I just heard they just got sold. They just got acquired, right? That this was 5 years later. This was, 2016, where I was, thinking that they're not all that great. 5 years later, well, what they do? They stuck with it. They made it work. So it's not about the idea. It's about your discipline and your execution.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that execution piece is just absolutely crucial. And people get so hung up on where to execute. But like you said, take a step back, identify where you're at, work backwards, do a little bit of reverse engineering and find out what's your next step. So I love how you've covered all of that in this interview. So I want to ask you specifically about Call Emmy, because I thought this app was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
The user interface was like 8 buttons. It's like, here are the 8 buttons. Click one of these if you need it. Right? And because we talked about this beforehand, I've worked with a lot of software companies where I open it up and I'm so lost. You're not going to sell this anyway. So I really appreciate that you guys made it simple, but the need you're solving is so funny because it fits so well with the rest of the interview, right? It's just an awesome need. You're helping people, busy moms, basically. Obviously, it can be used for many use cases, but busy working entrepreneurial moms to basically get their mundane day-to-day tasks taken care of by trusted people. So you're basically becoming this curated source for them. So talk to us a little bit about what that company is and where we can get access to that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Call Emmy provides on-demand or scheduled help to busy parents in their highest needs. So what are the highest needs? Number 1 is childcare. Number 2 is cleaning and organization. 3 is meals. 4 is laundry, and 5 is everything else, right? So we provide on-demand, if you want someone to come to your house now, you can use Call Emmy, just very similar to how you would, use Uber, or you can schedule it. We do babysitting on demand, meals, errands and organization and laundry. Let me give you some stats. This will open up your eyes. Well, your eyes are open. Whoever's eyes are not open, they'll get a kick out of this. So families and majority of the household responsibility, said or unsaid, is on the shoulder of moms. But families on average spend 2 to 3 hours a day cooking, 5 hours a week cleaning, 1 day a whole month doing nothing but laundry. I mean, 1 whole day a month. So now think about that. Say 5 hours a day plus just say 2 to 3 hours a day cleaning. So that's what, 15 plus 5, 20 hours a week. So that's a half-time job. I'm not even going to talk about laundry. Half-time job doing stuff that gives very little joy. I'm not talking about making a special meal for your family. I'm talking about feeding your family so that they don't sleep hungry, So doing stuff that brings very little joy to the family, but still needs to be done. How much better can we use that time? How much better can we use that time for either self-growth, self-development, good time with the family, or focusing on your business, focusing on your career, focusing on your education, doing something that really gives you value and adds value to you as a human being, add values to your family, brings your family closer. Who said, vacuuming will bring your family closer? It doesn't. So that is why I founded Call Emmy, because I all of a sudden was faced with that whole thing. I had a full-time house manager that was doing it all. She moved on. And then I realized, my goodness, this is in order for me to be a full-time professional and be successful and still hold my family together, I need help. And so if I feel that, every other mom out there feels that too, which research showed me that yes, absolutely, they feel that. And so we launched Call Emmy last year, September of last year. Day one, we were revenue positive. In fact, our app hadn't even been launched. I mean, it was buggy, it was really buggy. And then I got a call from someone saying, I need a cleaner to my house, like tomorrow. I said, our app isn't launched yet. She said, I don't care about your app. Send me a cleaner.
You're like, that's not my job, but I guess I'm going to do it.
Yeah, like, okay. So we've been, revenue positive from day one, and we've been growing organically, beautifully, month over month. I mean, we have a 300% growth, month over month. And we're starting to put money in marketing. And so I expect another big jump. So where do you find Call Emmy? You can go callemmy.com, or you can find us in the App Store or Google Play. And there's all kinds of fun stuff in the app.
Yeah, make sure you go check it out. I mean, and honestly, this is what's fun about being an early adopter to these platforms, is that you're going to learn the process and be ahead of the game as well. But I hope people will look at, and I wish we had a whole other hour to cover kind of your backstory on this, because it's so fascinating to watch, one big failure, but then taking that and turning it into Call Emmy, which has become just such a thriving success. I mean, 300% growth month by month is huge.
Yeah.
And that's pre-marketing. That's what's crazy to me.
Organically. Yeah. Just in 6 months. Yeah.
I love that. I love to see that happen. So everybody, make sure you go check that out. You can download the app, or you can go to callemmy.com. And I want to ask you, Arezou, one final question. If you could give one final parting piece of guidance to our audience, what would that be?
I'd say go do it. Go do it. Stop telling yourself why it's not a good idea. Have the courage to find the reasons why you should versus why you shouldn't. Go do it. That's my parting advice.